Yeah, well, first of all, I agree with all the cuts that my opponents here have already mentioned. And I'd like to take it even further. For one thing, we have, now I mentioned the military budget earlier, but let me be very clear. A primary function of the government is to defend the people here and to secure our borders. So don't get me wrong on this, okay? I'm not soft on defense. I'm not saying that we should at all compromise any security in the name of budgets. I mean, without our country, we don't have a budget to reduce. But we have spending overseas, providing other countries with the defense, and helping them save money so they don't have to pay for their own defense so they can compete with us. Okay, we're sending money. We got troops over in Europe. World War II ended a little while ago, you know? And in Japan, same statement here. These are advanced, modern countries that if they're willing to put in their own money and their own resources, they can handle their own defense. We gotta put them up to it. Let them know that's what they're gonna have to do. South Korea, they got a crazy guy to the north. They're also a modern country. They're also a big economic competitor. They're capable of developing defense to rival Kim Jong-il's. So that's one area I would cut that I haven't heard mentioned yet, and I don't know if anyone else here would do that. Another thing I would definitely cut back on is end the federal war on drugs. We do not need to be telling the states how to run their internal commerce.
Thank you, sir. Just to remind everybody, the question is, assuming the 13th Congress begins to get their spending under control, what safeguards must be put in place to help ensure wild spending doesn't happen again? Mr. Heckman, please, sir.
Yeah, I'm sad that you re-raised the question because the premise is just preposterous. I mean, we borrow 42 cents of every dollar the federal government spends. It's just not going to happen that way. I'm sorry. And to me, we've got to talk about how in the world are we going to cut this budget. And I've been saying since I started running for this office in March that there's one thing that does not fit our country. You quoted the Declaration of Independence. We have the certain rights of life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness. 50 years ago, it was JFK who said, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. That's very American. I applaud that. Even though he's a Democrat, that's very American, consistent. But if our president would stand on his hind feet today, he would say, ask and you shall receive. Food, clothing, shelter, medical care, cell phones, you name it. Come to mama government. And that's what's killing us as a nation today. That doesn't fit. It's kind of like, I'll put a tie on, my wife will say, that doesn't go with your outfit. Well, the welfare system does not go with that pursuit of happiness. It's guaranteed, and that's not right. We need to change that, and we got a plan to do that. That is the fastest growing. It's means-tested welfare has been the fastest growing budget item in the last 20 years, faster than defense, faster than other areas.
Thank you, Mr. Heckman. Peter Konechny, please.
We already have well, first of all, I don't think the premise is unreasonable. My feeling is that if we don't elect a Congress next year that's going to control spending, then our country's dead. And it's up to all of us in this room to go through and make sure that we elect a person, as well as throughout the entire nation, that understands the problem with spending, and we have to get it under control. Because if we don't get it under control, we're sunk as a nation. So I don't think the premise is unreasonable. I think it's hard, but not unreasonable. Okay, there's one funny little thing. A lot of people in Congress go through and they say that they support a balanced budget amendment as a safeguard, as you mentioned. I think it's close to 60 or plus senators and then the majority of the House members. What I can't figure out is if everyone supports this balanced budget amendment, why don't they simply balance the budget with a simple majority? They don't need a balanced budget amendment. It's just balancing the budget with a simple majority. As I said, I'm a constitutionalist. We already have the safeguard. If anyone read Article 1, Section 9 in the Constitution, it says that it's unconstitutional for the federal government to spend any money on any project that's not specifically enumerated in the Constitution. So it's already unconstitutional to spend money on health and human services and the Department of Education and energy and HUD and labor and all these other programs. And we as a people have to make sure that we just go through and make sure that our congressmen and our senators enforce the Constitution. It'll take care of the problem by itself.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Grant will be up next for our surprise question round. Mary Beth, please.
A little levity here, yeah.
It's all starting to make sense. What should be done to expand our drilling here in the United States? And among these, what should be the first thing we must do to help relieve our dependence on foreign oil?
Drill, baby, drill, now. And I would tell the EPA administrator that your paycheck will not be honored until you release those permits that allow American companies to drill for American resources. We have enough energy under our ground, in our offshore, with clean coal, natural gas, oil, and all the shale deposits to be an energy exporter. And if we become an energy exporter, three things happen. Prices go down for us, tremendous amount of American jobs get created, and our enemies get defunded. So I would say, defund our enemies, unleash the American century of innovation and creating energy that brings down the cost of heating our homes, cooling our homes, running our automobiles, building our businesses and our manufacturing companies, and get the EPA out of the way of the American people to do the American thing.
Thank you, sir. Gary Glenn. I'm going to quote a founding father here first. Quote, "When the people find they can vote themselves money." I like the reaction already. "That will herald the end of the republic," end quote. Ben Franklin. Why should congressional pay exceed the average private sector salary?
I don't know that it should, and I will be supportive of any idea any member of this audience or any citizen of this state comes to me with about that kind of reform. One of the best ones, if I get to the United States Senate, I'm going to introduce and call it the Josh Evans Act, named after a Marine in Iraq named Josh Evans, whose father came up to me at the DeWitt Tea Party debate and said, "My son's on his third tier in Iraq. He's about to finish 20 years, and when he gets 20 years in, he'll get 40% of his pay every year thereafter as a pension." A United States Senator, after 6 years, without having to run the risk of being shot at or killed or spend a whole lot of time away from his family, 6 years, 100% of his pay thereafter, forever throughout his life. At minimum, politicians in Washington should not be better compensated than the men and women who are willing to put their lives on the line. I've said too before that I would propose something like a 10% reduction in congressional pay for every year the budget is not balanced. We'd have a balanced budget pretty quick, with or without a balanced budget amendment. But I think we've got to have people who go there with the mindset to save our country, who don't care about getting reelected, but if they're known for anything, will be known for doing whatever they could humanly possibly do to save this country for our children and their country.
Thank you, sir. We're going to start off the third round with Scotty Coleman here. The point of randomly starting at places is to make sure that the candidates get somewhat of an equal distribution of starting the questions out. The third round will entail immigration and the border. Are states like Arizona and Alabama overreaching their authority by passing tough immigration laws? And what should the federal government be doing in order to secure our border?
They're not overreaching their authority as long as the laws they're passing are specifically addressing essentially the existing federal laws that are under-enforced. If, on the other hand, their laws are limiting movement of people in and out of their state, that's the kind of thing that the Interstate Commerce Clause was originally created for, back when people understood regulate meant to make regular rather than to restrict. So, my short answer is, as long as it's helping them enforce, its advice to enforce existing federal laws, does not violate anyone's constitutional rights, it is not overstepping. In the event that it does that, or that it's, like I said, treating the entire state as if it has a border going all the way around it instead of just at the national border, then in that case they would be overstepping.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Heckman.
No, they absolutely are not overstepping their boundaries or their requirements or their limits to enforce the law. They're frustrated that the federal government's not doing its job to enforce the laws of immigration. It's costing them great sums of money in Arizona and these other states with the medical care and other sorts of things, in jail and other things that are costly to their citizens. The taxpayers have to pick up this. The federal government needs to guard our borders, needs to put a wall up, a fence of some kind, and needs to have more soldiers and more National Guard or whatever it's going to take to make sure that we don't have illegal immigration coming into this country. We have to reduce the amount of magnets on this side of the border that draw people across the border. But we have to have border. We cannot absorb this. This is not right. On the other hand, how many of us are descendants, from people that came from other countries? I think most of us are. Yeah, legal. Exactly, legally. We need to encourage legal immigration. We need to make English the official language of America. And we need to pass a test to just begin that process in English. So there's much we need. We're proud of our country. We are not a salad bowl. We're a melting pot. We want to keep it that way because we're proud of America. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Peter Konechny.
Could you repeat the question again?
Certainly. Are states like Arizona and Alabama overreaching their authority by passing tough immigration law? And the second part of that is, what should the federal government be doing more, arguably, to secure our border?
No, they're not overstepping their authority. It says right in the Constitution that they can defend themselves against invasion. If the lower third of the Arizona state is uninhabitable, of course they can defend themselves. They can secure the borders. That's no problem whatsoever. As far as what should be done, there's a bunch of things. I always tell people, if we can secure the borders of the White House, the perimeter of the White House, we can easily secure the border. It's just whether there's a will to do it or not. And a lot of people in government seem to want illegal immigration because they're looking for a voting bloc or a dependency bloc, and that's very detrimental to the United States. What I think needs to be done is, well, several-fold. First, we have to go through and eliminate all federal benefits to illegal aliens. Right now they come in and they can get housing, they can get welfare, they can get education, they can get food stamps, they can get everything, and that's just disgusting. The other thing is illegal, and if they're here illegally, it's detrimental to the nation. So they should all be deported. Because what happens is, well, first of all, if they're here illegally, they're illegal. They're a drain on society. If we deport them, then we know that the only ones coming in are going to be legal, such as my wife. She came in legally. She does know English. She did pass the test in English. She did take the constitutional test, and she's a very beneficial addition to society, just like most of us here. So that's what we need to do. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Where are you going?